you for staying with us for this episode of Community Safety and Security series looking at understanding domestic violence and taking a look at the roles of our violence intervention centers. And we are going to be zoning in on Area 3, Clarendon and St. Elizabeth, the centers there. But before we get into that aspect, we want to have a discussion with DSP Jacqueline Dillon. DSP, you were sharing with us earlier. If you could just quickly recap what exactly is domestic violence?
All right. So for many of us, we think that domestic violence is really the physical violence. Domestic violence is a willful act of abuse. And the main aim of it is to gain power and control over a victim. There are varying forms of domestic violence. There is the financial that we often don't pay attention to. There is the emotional and psychological abuse. There's the sexual abuse. And the one that we always see, or we believe that at that stage is domestic violence, it is the physical one. So there are varying aspects to domestic violence. But in domestic violence, we're talking about intimate partner, violence among partners, persons in relationship, whether they are living together, whether they are dating, whether they are ex-partners, and family. And those we talk about family, we are talking about persons who are related by blood, probably or persons who are connected by a marriage, like an in-law, an adopted child, foster child, all under the category of domestic violence once it happened in the context of what I said earlier about what domestic violence is.
All right. So now that we have a better understanding, I'm hoping that we have a better understanding of what really it is. What are some of the signs that we can look for as individuals, or maybe for those around us to give an eye?
Oftentimes persons in relationship, and I like to begin there because although we have a number of other forms, so family violence is high. I'm going to start with intimate partner. We have persons in relationship, and there is this coercive control behavior, force control. I tell you what to eat, I tell you what to wear, I tell you how you're to look. We have the other part we call gaslighting. So it's all about what you did, why I respond a particular way. And then we have persons who love to always, not just coercive control, but social isolation. So persons are isolated from their families. If one partner want to do a visit, the other one say, no, you wait and we're going together. If one partner want to go out and line with friends, there's always this conflict about why you can't go. Somebody will look at you, and anywhere you're going, I want to be there because I want to be your protector. If you're spending, you need to know why you're spending, how you're spending, even though you're the one who is working that money. Yeah, the control that is there, and when we talk about it happening in relationships, sometimes the subtle signs we do not take seriously, because there's always, within the context of in a relationship or otherwise, there is always the three dynamics: love, fear, and hope. I love him or her. If I leave, what am I going to do? Because the emotional abuse oftentimes are the most deadly. You mess up people's head, you mash up people's psyche, you reduce them to nothing. So while the physical violence heal, the emotional abuse is longer, and it takes long for persons, to start to respond as themselves.
Wow. I trust that we are taking note of that, but don't worry if you missed some of that. You can still catch it on the replay. This is not going anywhere. It's going to be there on the YouTube page. All right. So you would have cleared that up. But we have some domestic violence intervention centers. That's relatively new, about what, 2 years? How long have they been around?
Um, Actually, the pilot project started in 2018. The
Okay.
ones that came on board in we had one in 2018 that was the pilot project in St. Andrew at Era 5 headquarters where I was based. And then we expanded to St. Thomas and Kingston, where we have Matilda's Corner and two in St. Thomas, Yallas and Morant Bay, because as you know, we always call St. Thomas a sex parish. Everything around family violence happens in St. Thomas, and that has been a part of St. Thomas's history. So in 2021, we added 6 new centers right across the island, to include the two in Area 3, as we call it, one in St. Elizabeth and the other in Clarendon. And hopefully we get one in Manchester too, because Manchester is beginning to look like a runaway train. You know, Manchester is beginning to look like Clarendon. So we have to start to educate persons about what they should do. You know, when it comes on to domestic violence, it's not about a simple conflict between people. It's more than that. It's an abuse. And until you understand and accept as community members, it is an abuse. And so you have a responsibility, each and every one of us in communities, to ensure that we educate each other, because it doesn't only affect adults, it affects children who are part of these families, you know.
Right. I can hear that you're very passionate about the work that you do. It's coming across. All right. But what's the role really of the Domestic Violence Intervention Center? They call them the DVI Care Center. You could explain the care and the
I
overall
love
role.
to talk about DVI care
Yes.
because DVI care is dear to my heart. When we started talking about domestic violence, long before I even look at it, retired Deputy Commissioner Novelet Grant was the brains behind it. And so when I began to work with her or alongside her, talking about domestic violence and hearing the concern of residents that, we are afraid to go to the police or in a station setting, because when we go, we are seeing members of our own community. So by the time we are finished talking to the police, it gets back into the community. And sometimes the response of the police is not of such that I want to talk to any police. And so a number of domestic violence incidents were not reported because, one, our members themselves did not understand how volatile domestic violence can be, and what we need to do. And so the centers became that face of the police to ensure that people have trust and confidence in us, that when they come to a DVI care center, that whatever they ask for, they are going to get. Once it's within the ambits of the law, we are able to do that. And also, the level of confidentiality is always there, because you're not talking to a crowd of people. You're talking to individuals who understand and empathize with your situation.
All right. So, what are some of the services we can expect to access at the DVI care centers?
All right, so for persons who need help, or you know of somebody who need help, there are two ways. You can walk into a local police station and ask to speak to the domestic violence person, or be referred there, or you go directly to the domestic violence intervention centers. Once you go there, you are going to be interviewed, because we have to get an idea of what the situation is. Based on that assessment, we will refer based on the nature of the situation. So with DVI care, our major intervention is through counseling. And all need to understand that the only way you can deal with domestic violence effectively is to engage counseling, because counseling allows individuals to take responsibilities for their own action, right? They allow you as an individual to look at self, to look at what has been going on. You come into a decision as to what you need to do next to survive. So we offer counseling services. We have partners with that. We also have a partnership with the Bureau of Gender Affairs through the national shelters. We work closely with victim support. We work with the restorative justice centers. We work with the courts because the law requires persons or say that persons can apply for court orders, be it protection order or occupation order or combination of both. All right, so they are varying partners. We work with all church groups to ensure that we try to educate community members. Justices of the peace are also some of our partners. So we have a wide cross section of individual and groups and agencies that we work closely with, because as a law enforcement officer, our role is first responders, and at some point we will need to engage other stakeholders in the process to make it a holistic approach.
That's right, because we have to work together in these spaces, as the challenges are really great, and we we can't do it by ourselves. And that is why we have these discussions. So we help to strengthen because I know a lot of work is going on in the different locations, but we cannot share enough, because I firmly believe that education is a great way for us to make some inroads as it relates to not just domestic violence, but the different areas as you continue to serve us. Right. I was having an interesting discussion with Constable Lewis, and she was sharing that, interestingly, some citizens don't realize that those who work in the domestic violence intervention centers are actually members of the JCF.
They are all members of the JCF, and they are particularly trained to understand domestic violence and work, and they come with a certain level of experience and education. So some of them are social workers, trained social workers. Some of them are trained guidance counselors. And so even though we do not take on the counseling full-fledged, we have to do cooling down of situation and making referrals so that we do not allow things to escalate. And so the centers are staffed by both male and female. So in almost all the centers, you'll have male or female. I think Clarendon may be the only one that doesn't have a male in there. And we will
As
get
yet.
there. Not yet, because we have been training persons also to work with these center managers from varying locations in the parish. So it's not just at the centers that we have people trained. We have persons trained, say, for example, at a Chapelton police station, all the way up in the hill, up in Kellits, or Cross Sale police station, I should say, because it is important, because the person who is all the way up across Sale, I'm from Clarendon, by the way, all the persons who are all the way up in Cross Sale may have a difficulty to come all the way down a ease. And so it's important for us as an organization to ensure that we train people right across all divisions and stations, that there's representation, and that the center managers, who are the ones who are fully trained, that they will guide these other persons when they need help.
Awesome. I love it. And that's a way of strengthening the service delivery in the different stations, because they are in the communities. All right. So we're talking about the Rock River, and that you mentioned Chapelton earlier. You're talking about what, Exeter, Moco, Milk River. All
The parish is very wide.
That's right.
One of our mandate given by the commissioner last year, we trained over 500 members of the JCF. We would have engaged over 600 members of the public in discussions on how they can help us because we understand, that the police cannot be everywhere. So what about our community members who can help to kind of cushion some of the things that are happening before they escalate into murders and serious wounds?
Very important. Very, very important. All right. And as you mentioned, before it escalate, let's look at some statistics. Let's start with.
I am wondering if you really want to hear the statistic, but I'm going to tell you.
I think as part of the education process, the figures don't lie, and even though they might be appalling, it's something that we have to just look at and take them for what they are, and do our part in being a part of the change that we want to see.
Well, all right. So the statistics for Jamaica last year was not nice, and it has not been comfortable for the last 5 or 6 years, because every year the number increases. But I want us to look at something. Research has shown that the number of reported incidents known to the police represents only 20% of the actual numbers of domestic violence incident in any country. So last year, we had 8,714 reported cases. That's 20% of what really happened out there. And let me tell you, since we're talking about Clarendon is a runaway train. Clarendon is leading the pack, because for last year, Clarendon's reported incident 1,094. Second to St. Anne, which was 1,121. So we had St. Anne up front with Clarendon next. Clarendon recorded, and that's what we have on paper, and there's more, 16 deaths that we are sure, we are certain were domestic violence related. I can't tell you the number of injuries, because the number of injuries are very high. St. Elizabeth, and I'm looking at the statistics, St. Elizabeth recorded 986 reported incidents with 3 murders. Now, even if you have 1 murder out of domestic violence, is 1 murder too much. It's 1 murder too many. And therefore, it is important that as community members, we understand that we have a role to play in education, because it's only through education that we will see reduction. We have to tell people about what they can do, what are acceptable within communities and household when it comes down to conflicts within the household.
Wow. To pause on that one. And as you mentioned, that we mentioned earlier that the 2 parishes that we are focusing on for this episode, relatively wide. What are where rather are some of the hotspots based on your records?
I hope my center managers are on and can speak, because they have a better knowledge. But from a national level,
yes,
the Clarendon belt, where we have the Lionel Town, the Portland Cottage, that southern belt, that's the southern belt of Clarendon, is where we have many of the incidents coming from. That's where we have the deaths occurring. My center manager from Clarendon, Miss Lewis, Constable Lewis, can further tell you about some of the other hotspot communities, because I'm calling them hotspot for domestic violence, because I can tell you that in every instance that we have incidents, major incidents, we always have a death. Well, you're following the news, you know of one just a week ago,
right,
in the southern area with the 2 brothers, and so we have 4 children being affected. But what about the other family members? Because we have to look at it from that perspective. So it can't be about 2 people in a conflict and somebody kill the next one. We have to look at the wider cost of domestic violence incidents in a parish because it hampers development.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes we look at these things in isolation, but development really can't be sustainable unless we actually get a grip of some of these things. So let's bring on Constable Lewis from the Clarendon Centre. Constable Lewis, you're up to share with us. Welcome, Constable Lewis, to the SERENITY Resource Connector, or Community Safety and Security.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So we're talking about Clarendon, and DSP Dillon was sharing that Clarendon's not looking too good where domestic violence is concerned, especially down the southern belt. So if you could let's start by looking at that incident that was mentioned for the two brothers. What kind of intervention was done in that regard?
All right. So our CSSB section, they went there. They had meetings with the family. They did outreach programs in the community to allow community members to know that we're here and that the police do have genuine interest in them based off their unique experience and their perspectives. We want them to, they were empowered to know that, listen, they're not alone. We're here with them. We're here on the battlefield to fight domestic violence. And we ask of them to share information, anything to bring redress and justice to the family members. We extend our arms to them to give support by doing grief counseling and to foster better relationship with the community by going in there, talking to them, reaching out, sharing information that way bring solace and comfort to them during their time of intense sorrow and grief.
Right. I know another incident that happened in Clarendon, up there in Moko. Sometimes we look at these things in isolation, but the DVI Centre was a part of that, the intervention in that area as well, correct?
Yes,
All
the
right.
DVI Center, we
Yes.
went there last Sunday, the 9th, and we had a meeting at the Zion Amy Church where we met with community members. Right there, we established a PYC. So young persons were targeted to come out, be president of the PYC. We had the chairman, the secretary, the entire exec body was put in place. And for that, we were grateful. They were excited to have us there, and we received them with welcoming arms as well to put them apart, to make them a part of our team. They had concerns and they raised them, and we addressed them and allow them to feel comfortable knowing that we will do all that we can. I spoke to them also on domestic violence, educate them, sensitize them, allow them to know what it is. Whenever they see these acts of domestic violence, they are no longer strangers to what that kind of violence is. They are now empowered to go out and spread the word. So we were happy that we could have established a PYC up in Darlow, Moko.
Right, fantastic. And I'm happy to hear that's one checked off, because when we had our forum with our youth leaders, the police youth council president and the parish youth council president, fifth Thursday in March, that was one of the areas that they were focusing on in terms of reigniting the youth clubs across the parish. So it's great that they have one checked off, and
Yes,
looking forward
indeed.
for one to go, because this is the thing, because you would have gone there, those who were a part of that group would have known that you did some intervention, because very often it appears as if the police just come in when something happens, just look, talk, and then that's it. So we want to highlight some of the real interventions taking place on the ground, so that the citizens are aware of what it is that you're actually doing out there. So
If
go
I
ahead.
may,
Yes,
if I may,
yes.
I don't want us to, and I hope all the persons on the platform are hearing us, because we're not just doing these interventions because something happened. we can only prevent domestic violence if we educate people, you know. And we must not allow an incident of domestic violence happening in a community that affects so many persons to become a 9-day wonder. So we wander, we ball for 9 days, and after the funeral, we forget that Mass Joe or Miss Mary had a conflict that causes a death in a community or serious injury. Because let me tell you, you see, reprisals often come out of simple incidents of domestic violence that community members do not pay attention to. And I want to put that out there. So the interventions in a particular way are important to us and for the community to heal from these acts of violence that just don't affect families only.
Very important to note. And that's a great way to segue to some of the interventions that or sensitizations really that takes place even outside of these incidents. What are some of the activities that the center get involved in ensuring that the citizens are aware of what domestic violence entails, the harm that domestic violence creates, not just to the individuals involved, but to the community around them? What are some of the engagements that the Clarendon DVICARE Centre has been involved in to date?
Well,
All right, so go ahead, Super.
Clarendon is one of those divisions that is active when it comes on to sensitization, community sensitization, and programs that are aimed at educating persons. And I have to commend the CSSB team in Clarendon because they have been doing a very good job. The problem is the community need to open them ears a little bit more and understand why we're saying it. We have international partners who say to us as JCF, we're coming on board to help you to educate. So we have the United Nations and the European Union. It is through their donation that we have these centers. Because if it wasn't for them, you will only hear about it. All right? And so I have to put it out there. So Clarendon has been doing a lot of walkthroughs, and you will see the police going through the communities, talking to residents. It's not because we don't have anything to do. It's because we want to have that one-on-one so that persons can ask questions that they may not necessarily want to ask in a big group. So the walkthroughs are there so that persons get closer to the police to talk about the issues that are in their community. All right? I know that Clarendon has been engaged in the churches. It is important that we educate and engage the churches because the churches are vital to us as a nation. And how can we forget the schools? Because so much violence is being played out in our schools, and it goes right back to the home. Remember I said earlier, that domestic violence begins in the home. It doesn't affect just the two people involved, it affects the children. So imagine how traumatized a child is having to witness violence in the home. And they go to school, and that's their way of venting. So we take our times as family members and community members, and we create little monsters because we say, business with Miss Mary Pitney, Miss Mary must go grow one pitney. Not understanding that we need to go back to the place where we take a village to grow a child. And so I'm going to shut up and allow Clarendon to tell you a little bit more about some of the other programs that they have had and they're having right now in Clarendon around domestic violence prevention.
Go ahead, Constable Lewis.
All right, so Super touched a lot of my pointers. Thank you, Super. The neighborhood watch, PYC meetings, the informal meetings,
Let's remind the viewers, PYC are the police youth clubs.
Yes, police youth clubs, right.
Go ahead.
Informal meetings, widely publicized meetings. We do offer professional counseling from the center, the DVICARE Centre. We make referrals to appropriate agencies based on the needs of the clients. And we do follow-ups. We have to do follow-ups. It's a pleasure to always do follow-ups because we want to know what is happening with our clients, or they are progressing. If it is that we had closed off a file before, we want to know that they're okay. And if the need arises for them to return, we will receive them with arms of love to care for them in our particular way. We offer credible and reliable information. Our office will never mislead. We have the requisite persons and the resource personnel to guide us, even if we are ignorant of the questions or the demands of the people. So we go at length to ensure that our service delivery meets their needs every time. So those are some of the things that we do here, and we do it with utmost pleasure.
All
And,
right.
and Flo, leave out the most important one. I thought that Flo would talk about it, is our pop-ups. So
Oh,
every month we go into a different parish. We have been in Clarendon, we have been in Maypen before, and we just show up in a town center and we just engage people through the music using the JCF band to bring the message of there's no excuse for abuse. Choose a better way, because that is our theme.
yes.
Choose a better way. There's no excuse for abuse. And we have been right across the island. We continue to do that because we have to engage the man pan the corner. And the man pan the corner not going to come to no station. He wants you to come to him where or her, wherever they are. And that's what we do with our pop-ups.
Yes.
All right. Great. All right. The time is going. So we want to bring St. Elizabeth in on the discussion. So do you have any figures for us for St. Elizabeth?
Oh, yes, I did share St. Elizabeth. I give it to you again. Hold on. Just let me bring it up here. So St. Elizabeth in 2022 recorded 986 cases, and that's an increase from 595 the previous year. So what you find is that you have more incidents being reported. It can be as a result of persons now knowing what to do when there are incidents and can reach out for help, or it can mean that there are increased number of cases. So it can be either of the two why the numbers look like that. It's the same for Clarendon. But St. Elizabeth has an increase in the number of incidents in 2022.
All right. So let's bring in Corporal Desiree McLeod in the discussion. Welcome, Corporal McLeod, from down there in the Bread Basket Parish, right?
No.
No?
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, Jamaica.
Awesome. So we're talking about St. Elizabeth. What's going on
Parish
in St. Elizabeth? All right. We are going to be very hospitable as Clarendonians and allow St. Elizabeth to enjoy the spotlight. All right. Corporal McLeod, say, I'm giving you promotion to DSP McLeod. Claim it.
There's power in the tongue, so let's see what will happen.
All right, great. What are some of the interventions that's going on down there in St. Elizabeth?
Okay, as my colleague Ms. Lewis said, it's something that is right across the board where domestic violence is concerned. So we our forms of intervention, we have one-on-one, and the one-on-one is where we sit with the persons who come in, or even via phone, and try to assist them through whatever process it is. We have the pop-up clinics, as Super would have mentioned earlier, and that is one of the many interventions that I realize that persons are really gravitating towards, because right down in St. Elizabeth, we are yet to have ours, and persons are asking me, I see it all across, I see it going around, we're not going to get any music. So we are anticipating that day, and hopefully these same persons and others will be available, and it will be somewhere where we can get the magnitude of persons to really participate, because it's not just about the music, but we all know that Jamaicans, we love lyrical music, no matter what it is. So the music is just to enhance what is the other part of the education process. For us here, our widely publicized meetings that are held where our superintendents or head of the division will plan that meeting with key stakeholders and community persons. Their persons get a chance to speak up, because at times you will have persons who are reluctant to say things to the police. But when they meet you at these sessions and you are able to give out some contact numbers, you're surprised to get some information that you would never get in normal circumstances. So it is really working. Domestic violence, as you'd have heard before, we had 986 cases last year. Of the 986 cases, I can tell you that we have not had a repeat offender in that. And what I mean by that is 986 individual cases, which for us is a plus. For last year, there were 3 reported cases of murder, unfortunate incidents, I should say. Of the 3, 2 were family related. One was an intimate, which at this point, let me hasten to say, we're just appealing to these persons, because this was an unfortunate case which involved 3 persons. Now we know where the problem would be, because if 3 persons are in a relationship, there's no equal to it. So somebody is going to get jealous at some point. So we're appealing to persons that, listen, it is real. It happened in our parish. This year, it's a new year. It's a new leaf. Everybody has started on a different path. Let us not have a repeat of that. It's really sad. 1 person lost their life. A female is left. 1 person is gone to prison for something that could have been avoided. We continue our education in that we have approached our PYC. It's still in the planning stage, where we will have a 1K for awareness. We say 1K for awareness because 5K is probably too much. Santa Cruz is very hot, I must add. So a lot of persons will not want to be a part of it. But to do 1K, even if it's 5, but each time you do 1, I think that we can reach somewhere. They're excited to go about and assist us that way to spread the message, because it's important that we engage our citizens. We have to engage young people. We have to find a way to ensure that the mistakes made by others, they are learning from it. We engage them to advise them. We inform them, we assist them, we guide them through like heart to ensure that they don't sit on the corner. Our community safety in St. Elizabeth has some real good programs. They have their Pon the Corner, where they go out, just random communities, see a group of young men at a shop, they sit and talk to them, they play football, kick a football or something. So they are engaged. They don't feel left out as if the police is just passing them and not paying them any attention. We pay attention. We find that we have young persons, when we go to the churches and do presentations, young persons are calling us to say, listen, this has been happening in my community. There has never been a listening ear. Can you assist? And we have assisted. So we are doing what we can from our office. We are just asking that the wider St. Elizabeth and even Jamaica just come on board, because we have contact. You don't have to come in office. A lot of persons don't want to come in for fear that somebody that they know will see them. We are in the country. Everybody knows everybody. It's not like Kingston. You might see somebody that you know. In the country, everybody. So the fact that they see them coming there, they might feel as if somebody say, oh, you are having a domestic violence issue. So nobody wants anybody to know, because it's kind of private for some persons. But we are saying to you, listen, when you come to our center, the only time persons will know that you came there is when they see you, if they see you coming from the office. And sometimes persons just pass through and want information. So it's not like everybody that comes to our office is really affected by domestic violence. They're affected, but it is, I should put it?
Second hand?
Yes, it is second hand. They have knowledge of it, and they want to help someone. So they come and they get the information, they get the contact numbers, they do call. And sometimes I tell her that when you ask, all right, how did you know about the center? Oh, I got it from a school. I went to a school, or I heard I got it from a PTA. But we are making strides, and we're just asking that persons just listen to us, educate themselves, and find ways of dealing with their abusive situations.
Right. And as you mentioned that, let's make sure they know where to find you. What's the location in Santa Cruz?
Okay, so from our center, it's located in Santa Cruz. It's on the compound of the Santa Cruz police station, but it's to the back. So it's close. So on that compound, we have the tax office, which is to the side of the station, and the court is to the left. Also, luckily we have the Restorative Justice Center, which is close by to us. So we are all on the same compound. So there is, and our contact number is 3219791, 3219791, or any of the police stations you call. The police officers will be there to assist. They will give the contact numbers they know, or they will refer them to us.
Right.
I'm listening. If you would have said something else, Desireen, you should tell them about the big billboard at Goshen. Where the
yes,
number is on there, and your center manager is also on there. So I want our listeners to pay attention to Goshen. The billboard is at Goshen. There's one in Clarendon, right, where Cool Oasis is, and that also has the contact number for the Clarendon DVICARE Centre.
And I saw a pretty nice one in Halfway Tree.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
All right.
But for the interest of the viewers, let me give them the Clarendon number. 876-816-8028. That's 816-8028. Or email dvicare.hayes@jcf.gov.jm. And we are located right on the compound of the Hayes Police Station. We're not too far away from Maypen, which is central.
All right, let's put that up, the email address. All right, so we are on the 1 hour mark, but we got a little delay in starting due to some technical glitches. So we are not going to deprive the viewers of any additional information. So before we go any further, we want to share the contact details for the Bureau of Gender Affairs, DSP. Don't want to leave that out at all.
So I'm going to ask either Desireen or Louis to give that. I think they have it at their fingertips right there. If not, the persons can go on Google and Google the Bureau of Gender Affairs, and there are two numbers that will come up. One for the male hotline and one for the female hotline. Louis, if you have it near to you, you can share it.
It looks like we're going to have to share that on the in the comment section. We share it in the comment section on the YouTube page or in the description, so we can have access to that. Share it on the SERENITY Resource Connector pages as well, so that you can have the information in all different locale. Found it, DSP?
Yeah, I can give you the number. The number is 553-0372. It's 553-0372. And once you call the Bureau, a social worker will answer and direct the call to the relevant persons.
There's also another number, 78576.
Repeat that number.
754-8576.
754-8576. All right, so we want to make sure you get as much information as possible. Maybe it's not for you, but there's always someone in your circle that might be in need of it. And even before we wrap, something that I believe is very important in terms of the the hotspots, are there prevalences in structured as opposed to unstructured communities? What's the data showing? Because that's something that there might be some misconceptions around.
Let me take that one. I'm going to take it out of my center manager's hand.
Okay.
There is no boundary for domestic violence. And you know, we are of the misconception that domestic violence is more prevalent in the unstructured community. Our report does not speak to that. It speaks to persons within structured and unstructured community that cannot deal with their conflicts in that particular way. So we have incidents in what we call the high society communities, and we have them in the low society communities. They are everywhere. We talk about our hotspot communities, not about it is not about structured or unstructured, because we find that a lot of our incidents happen in structured communities.
Very important to note that, because even as you shared earlier in terms of some of the signs to look for in the different groups, community groups that we're in, some of those might go unnoticed because we're looking for it in a particular group of individuals. So it's very important that we put that out there.
Love, fear, and hope. The three dynamics that are always at play.
We need to have a part 2 of this to go a little deeper into some of those areas, so we can provide a greater, a more in-depth understanding of some of the different situations to look for, because even as you go into the different groups. But we want to share though for the different groups, because I know that there are a lot of interventions, education going on in the community groups. And something I want to make very clear, we're catering to different demographics of individuals. So education cannot be too much. We have to utilize all the platform, these resources, the spaces that we have available. So some person might say, but why do you need to have this here? You need to be on the corner. Not everyone's on the corner. That's just right. To feel with that everyone is going to be in this space, but there's a space for all. And we want to make sure that all of us are aware and don't take it for granted that, boy, because this person look a particular way in a particular circle, they don't really need to know. Because as a justice of the peace, this is something that myself and my colleague justices of the peace need to be aware of. So when we're having discussions, when we have people coming to us, we're able to engage in just more than just putting on the seal and the signature on the document and everybody on their merry way. So just quickly as we wrap up, just share how justices of the peace and other or community group leaders, pastors and all, can be a part of the process, because it doesn't have to be a 15 1-hour session, 15 minutes or 1 hour session. It can be just that one, somebody coming to do something completely different and just engaging on a human level to get.
All right, so we have the domestic violence intervention unit. That's based where my office is, and we're based at Oxford Road in Kingston, and we supervise all the centers. So if it is that a justice of the peace, a community group, want to assist to deal with incidents of domestic violence, be it at the prevention or intervention level, they can make contact with my office, which is 224-4274. It is 224-4274 or 220-2828. And we can speak. There are forms that must be completed, because once we are engaging anybody in assisting to deal with incidents of domestic violence within communities at a particular level, then there are some forms that we ask people to sign to. One of them is our confidentiality form, because we do not want people's information to be out there. So if you have a group of justices in Clarendon who wants to be part of the process of intervention, whether through counseling or otherwise, give me a call, man, and let us build the Let us build that level of partnership so that we can have eyes and ears on the ground.
Indeed, because together we can do so much more.
Yeah.
Okay, so any final word to share from our DVICARE Centres before we go? 2 minutes each as we wrap. Clarendon?
All right.
Okay, go ahead, St. Elizabeth.
All right. For me, I just want to say to everyone, domestic violence, it doesn't know color, it doesn't know face, it doesn't know status. It affects everyone. And as community members, we ought to take it as being important. Rather than dressing up, going to a funeral, it's best we prevent it, even if it means that we have to go all out to find the necessary help. It's better that way. We're asking you to partner with us, give us the information, call any police station, walk into the police station, demand to speak to somebody who can assist. Mass Joe and Miss Jane up there after killing them one another, please come do something. It no longer, people should just sit by and say, it is not my business. It is everybody's business. It is the doctor's business. It is the lawyer's business. And I can tell you, it brings a strain on the police officers who have to be dealing with these levels of abuse, and even to the point where persons are injured. Police have the responsibility to take them to the hospital to be treated. So we see where the strain is. So we're asking persons, get on board, help us to help you, help your community, help a sister, help a friend, help a brother. Thank you.
Very passionate plea. I trust we all heard that. Constable Lewis.
All right. We as center managers within the sphere of Clarendon, we have a genuine interest in others, their unique experiences, and the perspectives that they bring in their critical thinking, and the way that they would build or help us to enhance building positive relationships. The damages of domestic violence can be sobering and can make things feel bleak. However, we work in collaboration with stakeholders, entities, advocate groups, different organizations to help to curb domestic violence and to protect and support the victims, and even by extension, helping to mold our perpetrators. We want community members and Jamaica at large to honor our victims of domestic violence by educating themselves. And by educating themselves, they can extend themselves. And by extending themselves, they can make a difference, especially in the darkest hour of the victims.
Right. Fantastic. Any final word from you, DSP Dillon? I know you have a lot. Final word.
So my final word to Jamaica is that we need to speak up. We need to speak out. Domestic violence is no longer a person's private business, and we all have a role to play in making our society safe. And we must begin in our homes and in our communities, because domestic violence not only affects communities, it affects our nation. And until we start to see it as an hindrance to development within a nation, then we will not fully commit to be a part of a prevention process. So I encourage all of you on this platform, take the message back. Choose a better way. There's no excuse for abuse. Doesn't matter what it is, you can choose a better way, and you always have choices that you can make.
Always. Very, very, very firm note on which to end Let me thank you, DSP Jacqueline Dillon, Island Coordinator for DVICARE Centres across Jamaica, Constable Lewis, Corporal McLeod from the centres in Clarendon and St. Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing, and I trust that the information will prove useful to, well, it's always useful because that's one of the things with viewers always share, that it's always informative. And we have a number of persons, not just local, but from in the diaspora that tune in. So we have the information spreading near and far so that we can be a part of the process, helping our brothers and sisters to live together in love and without fear. We want to get to that place where we can live in love without fear, so we can have more hope. All right. Thank you again, ladies, for sharing space with me here on the Serenity Resource Connector. For those who are able to join us live, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to always share the word, share the link for the playlist so that the previous discussions that we have had talking about the different services offered by the JCF in our different police divisions and areas, others can be aware of them and how they can access the services, how the police is serving us, and how we can help to be a part of that process for the change that we wish to see. Thank you again, and you continue to stay safe as we play our part in paving the path for those to come. All right, have a fantastic rest of the evening, and do tuning. We do this every Thursday, 8 p.m. So you see the schedule, but let me just share. On second Thursdays, we have the Community Safety and Security series. First Thursdays is Culture Corner with the JCDC. Third Thursdays, we're looking at EduBiz, and we're going to be zoning in on a special area in Clarendon down south. So not just bad things happening down south in Clarendon, we're going to be highlighting the positive that's taking place down there on the next episode. So you want to tune in for that, as well as fourth Thursday, we are going to go back up to Northern Clarendon, a little lower down, Chapelton and Rock River, so we can hear what the councillors are doing there in terms of a development process and how we can be a part of that. So you continue to stay tuned. Have a great night.